down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom just 'cause I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like suns and like moons, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just 'cause I laugh. As if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness. But just like life, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh, does it come as a surprise that I dance? As if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs. Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, naturally, there I go rising.
Yes, a very good evening and welcome to the first edition of Reparations Now for 2018. Reparations Now comes to you compliments of the Ministry of Social Cohesion and the Reparations Committee, the Guyana Reparations Committee. This evening rather, in the studio with us to bring the first program with you for the year, our Brother Royston Peters, the Essequibo representative on the Guyana Reparations Committee. To his right is Sister Penda Guyan, our logistics outreach expert. And she is representing the Ghana Day organization on the Guyana Reparations Committee. To her right is Brother Walter George from the Pan-African movement of Guyana, and he happens to be the treasurer of the Guyana Reparations Committee. And then to his right, in the words of the man in Linden, the big man sit down to the right of Walter George, and that is Brother Eric Phillips. He is the chair of the Guyana Reparations Committee. You all are looking fantastic in you look very uniformed in your jerseys. Welcome to the first edition of Reparations Now for 2018.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this evening we've got a very packed program. We will be going through about four presentations. Genetic Adam, first of all, and then Sister Penda Guyan will come in with Do You Know? Then we will go to a media clip which shows one of our outreaches to Fort Nassau. And then Brother Royston Peters is going to bring to us the work program, the Reparations Committee's work program for 2018. And then we will round off this evening's program with Brother Eric Phillips talking to us from the Guyana Reparations story. And so without much further ado, we go straight into Genetic Adam.
We look
look so different, the idea that we're all related seems impossible. It's hard to believe that 6 billion people all share the same ancestor. Yet 3 of the world's great religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, believe in one man who fathered us all. That makes Adam a key figure in the beliefs of more than half the world. Now, science offers a chance to find a genetic Adam, a single ancestor whose DNA survives in every man on Earth today. From the Inuit of the Arctic, to the Amerindians of the Amazon, from the nomads of the desert, to the businessmen of Wall Street. Spencer Wells, a geneticist with National Geographic, will lead us on a journey to identify the scientific Adam and reveal what made him so exceptional that he could father all men on Earth. But how do you unravel a chain so many generations long? A chain that leads all the way to the roots of humanity's family tree. Most of our DNA is a jumble from all our ancestors. It's what makes each of us unique. But there's a section of our genetic code that stays almost constant. The Y chromosome, the special piece of DNA that only men have. It's passed virtually unchanged from father to son, like a family name.
The Y chromosome links the men of today with the men who lived in the past. This tiny piece of DNA allows us to travel back in time through humanity's history.
These days, we use DNA to test whether a man is the biological father of a child. Could it really link the billions of men alive today back to one ancestor? Wells believes the answer is yes. That the Y chromosome can trace the origins of men from all over the world. From Africa to America, all the branches on the tree join up in one trunk. The Y chromosome links men today back to their common ancestors. The key is to reveal super ancestors, men who left their genetic imprint on huge numbers. They're like branching points, where vast sections of the tree come together in a single man. Geneticists can trace them further and further back down the tree to the ultimate super ancestor, scientific Adam. Our search starts in an unlikely place. With a super ancestor who passed his DNA to millions. He left such a vast legacy, Wells thinks he can trace it in a bar in San Francisco. The Bayview Boat Club is a watering hole for a group of Mongolian immigrants. These men have an outrageous claim. They think they're descendant from the great Mongol emperor, Genghis Khan.
Yeah. So how many people in Mongolia really believe that they're related to Genghis Khan? Every single person in the country?
Every single person.
There are, what, 10 million people living in...
It seems preposterous, as if everyone in America believed they were descended from George Washington. But if there's any truth to their claim, these men will link back to a common ancestor who lived generations ago. The first step on our journey back toward Adam.
So are you guys interested in finding out if you could be related to Genghis Khan himself?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, and then I'll pass...
Tapping the power of DNA starts with a basic tool.
They're sterile, by the way, which is kind of like a glorified toothbrush. Pull it out of the container. Looks like that.
Just a few cheek cells, and Wells can unlock secrets from our genetic past. With a simple swipe, Wells hopes to trace these men all the way back to a famous warrior who lived 800 years ago and thousands of miles away. Genghis Khan is one of the greatest historical figures of all time. 8 centuries ago, he ruled one of the largest empires the world has ever seen. What are the chances that a couple of guys in a San Francisco bar could be related to such an extraordinary man? Machines analyze the Mongolian's DNA, looking for traces on the Y chromosome that could link them to Genghis Khan. The odds against finding a connection seem astronomical.
Hey, guys.
But Wells has some surprising news.
We've got the results.
He's found evidence that 2 of these men are related to Genghis Khan.
These are your results. Sarah and George Dembarel. And Batur Tumor. All right.
What makes Wells think that these men link back to Genghis Khan himself? He's never met them before. He doesn't have their family trees. And he doesn't have Genghis Khan's DNA.
All the way back.
But Wells believes the Y chromosome can confirm the link. Most of the time, the Y chromosome is passed unchanged from father to son, like our last name. But sometimes little differences creep in, like the spelling of a family name changing over time. Every so often, a harmless mutation appears on one man's Y chromosome. All his sons inherit that mutation. And all their sons. It marks all descendants like a brand. That's how Wells found that 16 million men are cousins. Their Y chromosomes all show the same mutations. That means they're all descended from one single man, a Central Asian super ancestor. But who was he? Wells and other genetic detectives pieced together the clues. The mutations cluster around one place, Mongolia. They trace to almost 1,000 years ago. Scientists believe he must have been a man of power who had many sons to pass on his family line. The clues all point to one man, Genghis Khan. The evidence is circumstantial, but compelling. Khan's empire stretched from Kazakhstan to Korea. He ruled a dynasty that lasted generations. His sons and their sons had the power and position to spread his Y chromosome. As his armies swept through Central Asia, they cut down their enemies, and often, it said, took their women. The result? More offspring with Genghis Khan's Y chromosome, and other men's lineages destroyed forever. Genghis Khan's DNA is buried with him in an unknown grave, but his Y chromosome mutations survive in his descendants today. The research shows the Y chromosome can take us back hundreds of years. But to find scientific Adam, we must trace a man from our very beginning who fathered not millions, but billions. As people move from place to place, they often end up far from where their lineage began. Our family tree is becoming tangled at the top. Tracing family lines is getting harder and harder. There's only one way to clear away the tangles. Analyze Y chromosomes from people who still live in the land of their forefathers. To get a clearer picture of our family tree, Wells is leading a research project with the National Geographic Society and IBM. It's called the Genographic Project. It's a massive undertaking. It will take years. But when he's done, Wells will be able to tell where anyone in the world comes from. Wells and his colleagues have crisscrossed the globe in search of DNA samples. From Aborigines in Australia to tribesmen in South America. They've journeyed from Central Asia to South Africa to Siberia. With the same techniques used on Genghis Khan, Wells can link this mutation to another critical common ancestor. He's known as M9. He lived around 40,000 years ago. Wells' research suggests this one man could be the forefather of half of all men alive. We're getting closer to Adam. But Wells knows there are some men who do not have the M9 mutation. To identify the common ancestor of all men, he must take us deeper down the tree. But where does he go next? There are clues from beyond the world of genetics. It's evidence you can touch. Evidence from bones. Before the powerful new tools of DNA, our picture of humanity's past came almost entirely from fossils. But that picture is incomplete. The oldest human fossils come from Africa, dating back millions of years. But ancient remains have been found at other sites far away. The Middle East has produced early human fossils. And pre-human remains have been found in Asia. Fossil evidence points to 3 regions that could be the birthplace of humankind: Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Can DNA resolve which one gave birth to scientific Adam? Wells wants to find a place where people from all 3 regions intersect. A study of historical trading routes offers a likely candidate. Off the coast of Kenya, the tiny island of Pate. A mysterious place, with clues that seem out of place in Africa. Curious ruins.
It's the main mosque. It was painted black. Still see it.
Monuments that might be Islamic. Tombs that look almost Chinese. Even the faces suggest an intriguing mix. Some have the lighter skin tone of Europeans. Some could be Arabs. Others have eyes that look Asian. For centuries, traders have come here from all over the old world. From Europe, the Middle East, maybe even from China.
Jumbo. Jumbo. Jumbo.
History has created a genetic melting pot.
And by taking a sample of your DNA, of your genes, we can say something about the people you're related to in the past, your ancestors.
If the Y chromosomes here lead to a common ancestor for all these ethnic groups, they could lead us to Adam.
If you could open your mouth.
Wells takes samples from 25 local men.
Right. Thank you. Okay. You could open your mouth. Where was your mother born? Here.
DNA analysis proves there are men on Pate from all over the place.
Great. Thank you.
With ancestors from Africa, Europe, Arabia, India, and the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East. There is more genetic variation on this tiny island of Pate than in many countries. And the samples show something critical. They point to a new super ancestor. Even though the Y chromosomes come from all over the world, they almost all have something in common. A particular mutation that scientists call M168. In fact, men all over the planet share this mutation. Genghis Khan and the San Francisco Mongolians have it. Thomas Jefferson has it. Wells himself has it. Nearly 3 billion men share this mutation. And it means they're all descended from one man. It's a staggering thought. Genghis Khan could have fathered millions, but the man who first had this genetic mutation had billions of descendants. We're near the bottom of the tree. Could this man, M168, be Adam? There's only one problem. On the Kenyan island of Pate, Spencer Wells found one man who doesn't fit. His Y chromosome doesn't have the critical mutation. It's a crucial clue. And he's not the only one. There are others who are not descended from M168. So he can't be Adam. M168 is far down the tree, but not its base. And the Y chromosome from the odd man out on Pate gives us the final piece of our puzzle. The man's lineage originates in East or South Africa. Comparing this Y chromosome to thousands of men from all over the world reveals a critical discovery. These mutations, originating in Africa, appear on every Y chromosome in every man in the world today. These are the universal mutations we've been looking for. We followed the DNA trail all the way to the bottom of the tree. Every branch leads to one man, one Y chromosome. There must have been one man who gave rise to all men alive today. He is the ultimate super ancestor. He is Scientific Adam. One of his descendants was M168. He was the forefather of the ancient Middle Eastern ancestor of Thomas Jefferson. He gave rise to Genghis Khan's Y chromosome. In fact, all the Y chromosomes in the world trace back to this one African man. He is Scientific Adam. Wells believes the pattern of African Y chromosomes puts his birthplace somewhere in the Great Rift Valley region of East Africa, perhaps Tanzania or Ethiopia. He thinks this is Scientific Adam's homeland, his Garden of Eden. Genetics can date the ancient Y chromosome mutations to calculate the age of Scientific Adam. Wells believes he was born around 60,000 years ago. It sounds ancient, but it means our search for a common ancestor has not led us all the way back to a time of ape men, or even to primitive beings like Homo erectus. Compared to the billions of years of human evolution, we've found Adam in the recent past. The critical discoveries of where and when Adam lived prove he could not have looked like this. In East Africa is a little-known tribe called the Hadzabe.
Spencer, Fano.
Their DNA links them almost straight back to Adam. They give us a glimpse into his world. Mutations on the Y chromosome show that Scientific Adam was born around 60,000 years ago. An extraordinary time in human history, a time of crisis. Scientists believe humans were on the brink of extinction. the entire population may have fallen to no more than a couple of thousand. But from this moment of peril, humans begin an astonishing rise. For the first time, art appears. Tools become much more advanced. This new energy and innovation will enable our species to...
Yes, and so that was Scientific Adam, M168. But from 168, we had to go back to Africa. Excuse me. Speak to us about the significance of M168 and pre-M168.
Well, essentially it confirms what we've been aware of for quite a while, that civilization started in Africa, and the genetic Adam is African. And he was born 60,000 years ago. And so all men and women of this world are descendants of an African. It's difficult for people to accept that, but what happened is that as they moved from Africa to Australia, to India, to China, as the temperature changed, skin color changed, the hair density changed, eye color changed, because as it got colder, you needed more hair. In Africa, you needed less hair because of the sun. And all of the skeletal information also proves it. Going back to Lucy, which is 3.2 million years old, but he's basically saying that this scientific man, this man with all the creativity, the man who is the father of all of us, was born 60,000 years ago in Africa.
And that's very interesting. Walter, would you like to make a comment?
Well, you know, as Eric said, this is information that is known today, and what the researchers, archaeologists is finding now that they can't, when they look out throughout Africa, they recognize also that there were populations or civilization of people in all parts from north to the south, as much as 40,000, 60,000 years ago. So now they can't conclusively say that in one particular place, as they mentioned in Kenya, but more evidence is revealing that human civilization is far more beyond 4,000 years, as known by most political systems in the world. They hold to just about 4,000, 6,000 years, most of the political system in the world. But as deeper research showing, it is debunking those political systems, which, as you see now, they're unraveling today in various forms. But civilization of man is far back as, you could go 60,000 or as much as 70,000 years, whereby doing things that you would consider consciousness, being conscious, knowing to bury the dead, honoring the dead, observing whether it be movement of the heavenly bodies, as research showing that men and women were doing these things, involving in activity that we still do today. The only difference is that today we using what we call modern technology, and the technology they're using then is what we call today primitive.
Scientific Adam raises a very interesting point based when you take it in conjunction with what Eric said. Mm-hmm. Eric said Lucy goes back 3.odd million years ago. Uh-huh. But Scientific Adam is saying that the first intelligent human being came out 60,000 years ago.
And migrated to the rest of the world.
Did Lucy evolve into Scientific Adam based on your knowledge, Brother Eric?
Well, they're still doing that.
Oh, so that is not scientifically determined.
But either way, it confirms that the oldest skeletons have been found in Africa, in the same way that they found out that the oldest skeleton in Latin America and the Caribbean was found in Brazil, and her name was Luzia, and she was found in 1975, just outside Rio de Janeiro, and she was carbon dated 12,000 years old, which is 2,000 years before indigenous people cross the Bering Strait.
And then there's Naia
Naia,
in North America,
right, which is the second oldest skeleton.
found in these parts of the world.
Right.
And Naia was
African.
And to add to that, they even found another more complete skeleton than Dignish, or what we call Lucy, in further down in South Africa. That is more, as I said, complete, and it show, as I said, more evidence that the persons were already, in essence, was operating in a conscious mode. And in addition to saying, it's throughout Africa they're finding this. Initially they were just looking at Kenya region, South Africa region, but even they find it also in the North African region. So it's as they go deeper, they finding more things.
so there's a confluence. There's a confluence between science and let us say religion.
Yeah, and let me just add one point. This science, which is DNA tracing,
Right.
is a science that is well proven.
Mm-hmm.
The carbon dating that proves the 12,000 years and the 60,000 years is the same technology that takes us to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's proven technology. It's indisputable that these people were there 60,000 years ago. If we had looked at more of the tape, you would have found that that tribe he was speaking about has the most complicated language in the world. They use clicks. And that again reinforces that all languages evolved from that, because all other languages are much simpler than that complicated language.
Sister Penda,
Yes.
you did not say anything.
No, I think Brother Eric and Brother Walter has covered it intensely. And I'm
It must
just...
have been a Eve, right? A scientific
Yes,
Eve.
exactly. Oh, gosh.
And
no.
would have had to been African.
Yes, I agree. The part that I liked, though, is when he showed the zebras and all the things and said, the Garden of Eden. And for me, I've always maintained that the Garden of Eden was in Africa. And I would say, today, I look at Guyana as the Garden of Eden.
Okay.
Because
You know what is interesting? Now that you mentioned that, you know what is interesting in that tape, in that presentation? When he said Adam and Eve could not have looked like these people,
Yeah.
and he showed you them European
Michelangelo's
types,
paintings and stuff like
you know,
Yes.
in the background.
And he's white.
And you had to look somewhere else.
And he is white.
And he's right, yeah.
I think
I
that's-
agree.
And he was later hired to do the Human Genome Project, which is the basis of all the type of genetics that is driving technology today.
So all them European-looking images of Adam and Eve, we got to
With the Jerry
discard
curl
them.
of Eve that they that came out. I mean,
Brother Royston, are you deferring to your slot in the program?
yes.
Yes.
Well, yes, I can.
Okay, then. So we come back to the lady in orange, Sister Penda Goyan.
Yes.
Take us through Do You Know?
Do you know? Okay. My do you know today is, do you know that Palmares Quilombola was the first democratic community formed by escaped Africans in Brazil in 1606. It was a community where escaped slaves, or escaped Africans, I should
Yes,
say,
I would-
escaped Africans.
More politically correct.
Yes, I have to be politically correct, would go to, right? And not only were escaped Africans going there, but Amerindians and Caucasians. They went there to get their freedom from other Caucasians that were oppressing them. So in essence, it was not only the first democratic community, but it was also the first community in modern day society to practice social cohesion.
Yeah.
You're smiling. It's correct. Am I not?
And it
Yes.
lasted for a very long time. They
Yes.
defended themselves.
And so what that brings me to, and it was ruled by Zombie, and it was finally defeated in 1695. But that brings me to the Stabroek News article of Tuesday, January 16th. And this was done by Reuters of Rio de Janeiro. It claims Brazilian miner Vale ordered to repair environmental damage. Now, you're reading that heading, you would think it's just something that happened by the wayside. But listen carefully. A Brazilian court yesterday, referring to January 15th, ordered the world's largest iron ore miner, Vale, SA, to repair environmental damages its operations caused in land belonging to a company of descendants of escaped slaves in northern Brazil. Federal prosecutors announced the ruling in a statement that said the electricity transmission lines and a bauxite, or I must be politically correct again, a bauxite pipeline damaged soil and silted up rivers in the Moju Quilombola territory in the northeast of Para State. This is in Brazil. The court ordered Vale to set up a project to generate income for the 788 families affected by the company's operations and compensate them with cash until it was implemented. Now, this is the best part. No value was given for the cost of the reparations Vale must pay. The Rio de Janeiro-based company did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So what we have here is another Quilombola that was formed, even though Palmares was defeated. You had a number of them that were in existence, and this one has to date 788 families. And what this company did is damaged their community, and they were ordered to pay reparations. So this here is really a precedent that has been set for us. After all, we are Guyana's Reparation Committee. And this is of great interest to us because here they are paying, and the beauty is that they have to set up a company that will generate income for these families. So they're not just throwing cash to them, they have to set up a project that will generate income. They have to repair them.
Yeah, that's how Israel became wealthy. They were given wealth by the cash by the West German state, but they also had to build their economy.
Yes, this is what this
and
is.
so
saying.
that brings us to the end for Do You Know Today?
Yes, thank you.
Let us go back. As Sister Penda, as you were speaking, you did not notice that Brother Eric went to the table and he picked up A to Z.
So there it is. Zumbi. And can you show it? And the Colombo.
And the Columbus.
Yeah. See, that is what I was talking about.
And if we can get the cover also too. And Brother Eric, can you tell the public where they can get a copy of this book to see what Sister Penda was talking about?
Well, this book is at Austin's, but you can also get it from the Guyana Reparations Committee. It's a great book to educate your kids.
Okay, and so from Do You Know, we go into some, no, but we'll have to skip that particular item and go straight to Brother Royston with Reparations Work Program for 2018.
All right. Good, thanks, Brother Johnson. And as I do that, I want to also reflect on works already done for this first part that we have gone through. thus far. Well, the first thing we did was to have our subcommittees advance the work of those to ensure that the Commission, the Guy Reparations Committee, can maintain and accelerate the work it has to do. And so those committees have been formalized and they've actually gone into work. We have a youth committee, we have a history and research committee, we have a land committee, we have a mobilization committee, we have a media committee, and there are two more I can't recall at the moment, but they're all into work mode, and that is to assist in making the work of the committee much lighter, because these committees will be formed and to co-opt onto themselves members of the public who can have inputs made to those as you go along. So it's a live extension or expansion of the committee to have its work done by all who might have an interest in being part of. The other thing we did was to, in an effort to immerse ourselves into some of our own history, we took a tour to Fort Nassau to have a look, see what's happening there, what went on, and have an understanding of the location. But we'll bring more of that to you at subsequent engagements. The other thing was to have outreaches by the Reparations Committee, and as of today, we have had 3 outreaches. On the 11th of February, we had one in Esquibo at Henrietta, in association with the ASEA group and the other reparation formations along the Esquibo coast. And that meeting was held in Henrietta. An interesting session. We had members from the Central Committee attending in that meeting and speaking to the residents of Esquibo. We had our chair, Brother Eric Phillips. We had Sister Esther as part of the team who engaged in that outreach. And a few notables have occurred. As a matter of fact, only some days ago, I received calls asking of how we can have the committees set up, or the groups in Esquibo set up, to ensure that they can accelerate the working that they're doing as well. And that's both the youth and the women group, as well as another group that has an interest in getting involved in the works as well. On the 24th of February, we went into Linden, and we had our outreach in Linden at the LTI, Techno Institute in Linden. And we had again in attendance a handsome crowd of people. And I must admit that a number of persons who were there at that outreach yesterday are not persons who you would normally see at the regular forums. So we had a new clientele coming into being. So we're thankful for that, for the working of the people in the groups who assisted in the process. And that again was a combination of efforts by the Reparations Committee and a number of groups in Linden who have been working with their people. That's the African movement and the Rastafarian groups in Linden, and Bessa Foundation. They have all been assisting in mobilization for those for the effort in Linden yesterday afternoon. And on the 25th of February, which happens to be today, we had our outreach in Berbice, and we went into quarantine coast at Liverpool, and we met with a number of persons there who straddled from across from New Amsterdam right up to Corriverton, and they were all in attendance. And we were really blessed to have our folks from Sanford coming in, doing a little dance and playing the drums for us and so on. That was fantastic. As you know, Sanford was one of our foundational culture groupings, and so we had a fantastic session there with them today. And we had to pledge to them to have a follow-up session, because we had a lot of desires which were grossly unanswered. And so we recognized that there is need for us to go on the ground and do some work in respective communities, so build them and bring them all up and be engaged in a very tangible way to help themselves, to repair themselves in the process. And so we had those outreaches. There were also some other activities, but I'm going to ask Brother Walter to fill in on some of those activities as well.
Well, to start with, we today is commencing our outreach in terms of TV programs. This would be every second Thursday from 9:05 in the evening, and fourth Sunday 7:05 in the evening, and this would be monthly for throughout the year. So among that, we would be doing radio outreach program within the various county. So we don't have the timeline on that at the moment, but look out for us on the radio. In addition to the outreach, we also looking at setting up major reparation conference, whereby we looking to invite overseas guests to share their work in terms of reparation and what they're doing in their country, along with other key speakers within the reparation movement. Hopefully we looking to hold one in Georgetown, and most likely we may go back in Berbice based on the demand that we have in those areas. In addition to that, we would be partnering with our sister organization like PANAF, Coffee 250, ACDA, and doing lecture series. And this lecture series is basically working with the terms of reference, which is about bringing the education in terms of repair, to revitalize, to rebuild, to continue that work. Because as you know, when you look among the African community, because of the past, damage in terms of enslavement, colonialism, imperialism, apartheid. When you look at the whole complete, like I said, damage package, you see the need for repair, and that's reparation is about repair, spiritually, mentally, bringing back Africans to a position where they could be able to communicate with other brothers and sisters within the world to a level that they would be respected.
Brother George, you said that we'll be having 2 programs each month, one on Thursday,
fourth Thursday, second
Thursday, and one on the fourth Friday, fourth Sunday. Is there a difference between the Thursday program and the Sunday program?
Well, the Thursday program is about bringing, clips and bringing clips with the youth. Bringing the youth.
It's a youth program.
Yeah, youth arm of reparation, because one of the mandate from CARICOM, the CARICOM reparation chairs, is asking that each country committee form a youth arm, and as such, reparation has set in motion that work. Currently, the youth supposed to be meeting and setting up a structure which they would work from. Currently, it is in a framework form, and now holding the meetings. So they would be featuring on the Thursday. So we could ask the public to look out for the youths on Thursday in the near future.
So the Guyana Reparations Committee is growing. Not only are we coming out more uniform now.
We in the embryonic stage, but growing to to be an adult.
Were you finished making your presentation in terms of work program?
Yeah. Outside of that, we have outreaches with select groups, whereby we get organizations made ask to meet with reparation, whereby they may get whether be a cluster of people, whether adult or youth, who would make a special request. We have those type of forums, lecture series, whereby certain officers in the reparation community would go out and share with the community things reparation and stories relating around the reparation community. In addition to that, you have the partnership whereby members of the reparation committee were required to go overseas to work with other reparation groups. And possibly this year we may have 3 such events whereby officers from the Guyana Reparation Committee will have to go in the Caribbean, possible, England and Holland to work with other reparation groups. Because what we're trying to do is create a network within the reparation movement, not locally but also internationally.
Is that work going to be research oriented?
Well, we also plan for research work in Holland and Britain, and hopefully.
Why Holland?
Holland, because Holland, as you know, initially was the Dutch who established enslavement, or if you want to call it labor camps, in this part of the world. And they were good record keepers of their work and that they were doing here. And a lot of the information based on our historians indicate that a lot of that part of our history is in the Dutch language. So that's why Holland is key. Also, Britain is also another place which got a great repository of information.
I don't know if it's appropriate at this time. And after this answer, we're going to go to, it's been an intense, it was a heavy program. So we can lighten up the program a little bit with some ads. And a poem that was done by a teeny weeny young lady in Linden yesterday. Fantastic. We're going to lighten up the program with that, and then we're going to come back to Brother Eric, who is going to speak to us from the Guyana reparations story. And so, let us, Brother Eric, the CARICOM Reparations Research Center recently revealed by way of an
tweet,
a press conference, that they found a tweet from the British Parliament saying that they had paid off the loan that was taken to pay the planters in 1838. That it was done only in 2015. What is the implication of that?
Yes, we are always told that reparations is the past and we should forget it. Well, in 1838, 20 million pounds were given to 46,000 British slave owners. That had to be repaid. And they've been repaying it quietly, and the last payment was recent. So in essence, enslavement, the wealth from enslavement, that whole process of repayment is still real today. So to make the argument to us that we should not be repaired, when only last year and this year they were still being repaired, says a lot. So that was hidden. We thought that it had been paid for quite a while. Now we're finding out that they were still repaying the 20 million pounds, which is worth billions of dollars, something $billion today. We should also remember that apprenticeship was worth 27 million pounds.
Yes.
And so the total compensation to the British was 47 million pounds, which are over $100 billion. So the truth is always revealed, whether you try to bury it or not. So the British are still engaged in repairing themselves and repaying the loans that the government took to pay the British farmers.
So that's another little, did you know?
Reminder.
And on that note, we will go to the poem by Little Itopi in Linden and the ads.
My poem is entitled Reparation. You really think you will have got enough when you kill, rob, rape, and slave us like us? While you throw back smoke in your cigar, drinking your whiskey, mocking, and you laugh. But you don't know a time will come for you to enjoy your half, which is the Almighty and dignation and Him wrath. The box so we heart heavy to continue your forceful duty. Now you come into your brain by putting computer box to rain, but that cannot repair the loss, nor heal the wounds and pain. So it's time for you to stop slaying and start preparing or to revoke natural disaster again and again. Nature is rewarding everyone according to his desire, returning everything to its beginning. To why you slave master with volcano, earthquake, hurricane, fire, brimstone, thunder, and lightning. Eradicate semantics and allow black man to repatriate. So to the Queen of England and to the Pope of Rome, make reparations straight before it's too late for real judgment is knocking at your gate.
And that was little Itopi and Linden yesterday, telling the Pope and the Queen of England, reparations now. No. Comments, Brother Eric, and then you can go straight into reparation story.
Well, it's fascinating to see a young person like that not only able to say the poem, but to have the right context and to use the right word. So that's a little queen coming there. And we need to spread reparations through cultural products, whether it's music, a jingle, poems. We started off with Mayor Angelo, Still I Rise, and that young lady is rising more and more.
Yes. So, Little Itopi, we're going to hear a little more from Little Itopi. We're going to hear a lot more from Little Itopi in the future. What is interesting is that after Little Itopi rocked the place with our thing, the mother said, "No, me take your left face." And the mother came and did her poem also too. It's a family, a talented family. So, Brother Eric, Guyana reparation story.
Well, this year, the major focus is to get an ancestral rights bill. We wrote the Guyana reparation story. It is conclusive that, and irrefutable, that Africans in Guyana should get reparations. One, there's already a precedent set in terms of the Amerindian Act, which is reparations to indigenous people. And as we pointed out earlier, 3 of the 9 tribes who are here in Guyana arrived in Guyana 100 to 200 years after we came here. So the Waiwais came here 100 years ago. The Mukusis and the Wapishanas came here 200 years after we arrived. So the Ancestral Rights Bill will be a bill that asks for 18% of Guyana. We've been working very hard to define those areas. We've put together a legal document that talks about who is qualified to be a descendant. We've identified a governance structure, so we're thinking about a perpetual trust where the lands will be put in. There'll be 15 members running that trust. They'll be elected from villages, so we have to get back to the village movement and village communities. We will have 7 technical people who will manage the process in terms of applications for scholarships, for lands, for other type of help. Those 7 technical people who are not elected by the communities will have 1 vote, and the chairman of that trust will be elected from the 15 and will have a deciding vote, and this will be rotated. The trust is designed in such a way that if somebody wanted 1,000 acres of land to do something, the trust would vest that land into their business. They can take it to the bank and collateralize it, but it will still always belong to the trust. So it will, over time, create more wealth. So we're looking at generational wealth creation. Of course, to do that, to have land, you need a bank. So we're working on the bank to ensure that we can finance this land that we're claiming. But from a legal point of view, we should get land justice, and we plan to, in these outreaches, petition. And throughout the year, we will be discussing this story, which talks about in the beginning. We heard about scientific Adam today, genetic Adam.
Yes.
We'll talk about Africa before enslavement, which will show the beauty and grandeur of Africa, the pyramids, all the incredible things of the Moors and over 100 different societies. And of course, we'll talk about what happened during 1621 to 1838, or enslavement. And then finally, we'll talk about reparations. So that's it. It's going to be a full year, very focused year with our youth movement and with the continuing grouping of the Guyana reparations story.
And so, Brother Eric, Brother George, Sister Penda, Brother Royston, it was a pleasure hosting you today. I'm yours truly, Jonathan Adams. Please be invited. Please be invited to our Thursday meetings at Barima Avenue, Museum of African Heritage. It's an open invitation to all Africans here in Guyana. So until we meet again, until the young people meet again on the second Thursday of March, and we meet again on the last Sunday of March, we go out saying, like Little Light Topi, reparations now.